I want to talk about the most influential books I read in 2020. Influential for the fund, for Orange Capital Partners. I want to caveat this. I've read a few interesting novels. I've read inspiring books. I've listened to inspiring podcasts. I've read inspiring white papers, etc. But those books, I think, are key for the business. The purpose of this podcast is to give people a sense for what it feels like to run a hedge fund. Reading books and finding inspiration through books is key of a fund manager's life. I've said that many times before, and I want to reiterate that. And this is the purpose of this episode, is to give people a bit of a sense for how I was navigating this year through the literature and how I was inspired to improve as a fund manager. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's January 1st, 2021. This is Krim Delco today. The markets are closed and there's no update. The 5 books, I want to start with 5 books and give an overview over why I believe they are influential and just in general talk a little bit about them. This is not a book review by any means. You have to buy the book, read the book yourself. But I just want to give a sense for how they influence me and how I think I am becoming a better fund manager through those books. So number 1, The Innovation Stack. Number 2, The Beginning of Infinity. Number 3, The Breakthrough. Number 4, Chasing the Light. And number 5, No Rules Rules. Let's start with the most important book. I think the biggest enlightenment I've seen as a fund manager is reading The Innovation Stack by Jim McKelvey. Jim McKelvey is co-founder of Square, together with Jack Dorsey. Square, in my view, is the really true disruptor, or sorry, the only true disruptor that is listed and that is succeeding and is generating wealth for investors as a true disruptor in a Clayton Christensen sense. So there's a lot of people talking about disruption, and the word is being used in many ways. Actually, we at Orange Capital Partners have changed our mission statement away from investing in disruptive technologies to investing in new concepts and engineering practices with large impact. So because we wanted to be more precise and not use the word disruption. The word disruption is being used in many ways. And I think Jim McKelvey is, first of all, really nicely explaining what disruption means without using the word. And second, I think it's also a sort of a disruption 2.0, because he's going deeper and more precisely into the business practices of a disruptor. And that is the key. So what is the book about? The book is about the idea that innovation is a necessity, not a choice. The idea that you start with small problems, you solve them. By solving those small problems, you create new problems, better problems, but still new problems that need to be solved. And hence you start building what he calls an innovation stack. This is in essence, exactly what disruption is. And on top of that, it usually starts as a toy or as a small thing or as a negligible thing. In the case of Square, it was receiving payments, let's say, at the organic grocery market around the corner. So that didn't look like a very dangerous, threatening financial services company at all. I am making a prediction that Square in the next 5 to 10 years will be competing with Goldman Sachs for primary treasury dealings, for the financing of the government, and doing all this high finance stuff. So it started with a grocery market, and it will end up in high finance. And this is exactly what Clayton Christensen was talking about. We don't own Square for various reasons. I don't want to go into that. But this book has given me, it's one of those books that I think McKelvey, first of all, as an entrepreneur, has all the street cred to actually write a book like that. He is extremely good at doing it. He is extremely interesting to listen to and talk to. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't talk to him, but to listen to and also be exposed to. And here's why, because not just that he writes about how they started Square, he's really creative in terms of, let's say, going out and finding other examples, such as AP Giannini, who started the Bank of America in San Francisco around the turn of the 19th century and the 20th century, and created this new financial services giant. He talks about the person that started Southwest Airlines. So he's using different people, different entrepreneurs in different sectors, some successful, some not, meaning the sectors themselves, and showing how an innovation stack can be powerful, for example, even in airlines, where as a sector, that is obviously a disastrous sector to be in, but even there you can create value as an innovation stack builder. So very, very powerful, inspiring, and helps us at Orange Capital Partners to continue our pursuit of against our mission, our pursuit of trying to achieve our mission, which is to generate wealth by investing in fundamentally new concepts and engineering practices with large impact. This is what we're trying to do, and the innovation stack is the underlying factor. So Jim McKelvey is one of the 4 principles that we build our own investment approach on. So it's the part of what we call the principle stack, and one of the 4 books. One of them is Jim McKelvey's The Innovation Stack. One is The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. One is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, and The Beginning of Infinity by David Deutsch is the 4th one. And this would be the 2nd book that I read this year that inspired me a lot. I reread it. I also used Brett Hall's podcast to read it again. So I read it through his podcast. Actually, I listen more to a podcast than reread it, but doesn't matter. I will consider this rereading the book, because his podcast is very thorough, very, very deep, very interesting. And having read the book and then reread the book, it just gives you really a lot of meat around the bone here. What is The Beginning of Infinity? I call The Beginning of Infinity, it is the principle stack that underlies our principle stack. So it is a book in itself with a fundamental idea, which is that human creativity and free will and choice is the foundational driver of progress. That Popperian epistemology, which is that the question who should rule is not the right question. It is what is the process by which we can replace ideas with better ideas, companies with better companies, concepts with better companies, scientific truth with better scientific truth. This is the right way to think about the world, the right way to organize ourselves, and fundamentally the right way to manage money. So there is no right investment, right way to do things, wrong way to do things. Everything is a competition of ideas, competition of concepts, creativity, uniqueness, solving problems in a unique way, trying to do something unusual. Those are all things that fundamentally are necessary to drive progress. They're not sufficient, but they're necessary. Without that, you cannot have progress. And I think this is the key message from The Beginning of Infinity, that you have Popperian epistemology. So the question is not which is the right company, or which is the right ruler, or which is the right truth. It is about how can we replace bad ones with better ones. It fits very well into the disruptive theory of Clayton Christensen, and the idea that you have replacement inherent in the system of capitalism, that the thing that we call capitalism. So it's inherent in there that we have a violent free replacement of, let's say, the leader in the car industry goes from being, let's say, BMW to Tesla. And that is a seamless transition because disruption makes that happen. Now, Tesla is not a true disruptor, but I don't want to split hair here now. Tesla has a disruptive force in a sense that it's building an innovation stack. It's a little bit different than what Christensen is explaining, but it's fine. In the end, it has the same impact, which is it's replacing existing sector leaders such as BMW and Toyota and etc. with better, newer concepts and ideas and engineering practices, which is the Tesla car and the solar power and all that. Number 3 on my list is The Breakthrough by Charles Graeber. It's a book about how immunotherapy had a renaissance and was able to win in the battle for the best therapy for cancer. So this is Popperian in the sense that we have this competition for concepts and ideas, how to treat cancer. We have immunotherapy as a tool, which was 100 years ago already being considered, then put on the back burner, and now has a renaissance. And I think with the CAR T cell and the NK cell development, one of our portfolio companies, Fate Therapeutics, is actually designing NK cells, natural killer cells, to go kill tumors. So the idea of immunotherapy not just re-emerged, it is in a very big way now coming back, and through the genomics revolution and the synthetic biology revolution also getting, I think, a massive boost. And hopefully, this is of course a hope, but we strongly believe that it is possible that we will have a massive breakthrough in things like cancer research through immunotherapy and the combination of immunotherapy and genomics. Now, what is so interesting about this book? First of all, it's a great narrative. Charles is a good writer. I think he's a writer like for Wired and places like that. So he's not a scientific writer like Kevin Davis, for example, in Editing Humanity. It's not the kind of writer that has the PhD level approach to things. He is more the storyteller, but he's very, very good at that. So and very interesting book. What is the book about? So we have immunotherapy, which is using our own immune system to fight cancer. It is considered a possibility even 100 years ago because certain people have success in doing that. Now, unfortunately, we also see a lot of failure. So like very often in biology, people die, people have very bad responses to therapies, etc. So it gets put on a back burner. Now, also what Graeber is showing, and this is really interesting, is sort of the politics around the ideas of what therapies to use. So unfortunately, it's not always that everybody sits down at the round table and tries to get the best solution for the patient. It is more like, I have an idea and I want to fight for my idea, and I want to have the pedigree and the status and all that to be the one who has the best idea in solving this particular problem. And immunotherapy kind of fell a little bit through those cracks because there were competing therapies such as radiation and chemotherapy, which actually won out. And even today, when you talk about cancer, you're talking about chemotherapy and radiation as a potential cure. You're not talking about immunotherapy yet. So even today, it is still, I would say, almost like a so-called experimental new type of therapy, versus the other ones are more established, even though their success rate is very low. I think the common knowledge in cancer is that unless we catch it early and operate it out, the chances of survival are very small, and chemo and radiation are not exactly the kinds of things that help cancer patients, particularly in later stage. Versus immunotherapy has using our own system to fight it. Our own system is very adaptive. Once we teach our own system to actually fight cancer, it is not just much better and less side effects, but it's also much more adaptive and gives longer-term viability to the situation, to the patient. So overall, a great book in that sense. It helped me understand how the politics, or if you want, the epistemology of applied cancer research works. What is true, what is not true, what is used, what is not used. All of these things are subject to negotiation. It is unfortunately not like that we humans always seek the truth. I think we humans are more like Churchill said about America. We always end up doing the right thing after we tried everything else. So it's a little bit more like that. And it's Popperian in a way that in the end, we have a competition of ideas, fortunately, and good ideas end up replacing bad ideas. It just sometimes takes a bit longer, like in the case of immunotherapy. This is very important for us in many different ways. First of all, it shows that new concepts can win, that medicine, even though it's very, I would say, rigid, a little bit corrupt in many countries and all that, in the end, it still follows the Popperian epistemology of replacing bad ideas with better ideas, because in the end, we are fighting diseases, we are trying to help patients, and everybody is on board, even maybe after having tried everything else. So this book also is a real nice segue for us into genomics, because we believe a lot of the upside in genomics actually is in cancer, in CAR-T, NK cell design, cell therapy, cell programming, like Fate Therapeutics does. Those are the kinds of things where we see massive opportunity. Fate is doing allogenic cell programming, so they're using off-the-shelf cells that are programmed and injectable into patients, which would massively lower the cost and increase efficacy and return speed and things like that. So make it a lot more palatable for the system to absorb these types of therapies. And therefore, I think this book is, I would say, a nice foundation for our thesis that we believe the next couple of years will be a massive wealth generation in the genomics, synthetic biology space. The fourth book is Chasing the Light. It's the autobiography by Oliver Stone, the filmmaker. Now you might say, what does a filmmaker have to do with a hedge fund? Well, let me tell you something. I think Oliver Stone is the most interesting filmmaker that Hollywood has developed in the last 50 years, hands down. I don't care what you say, because he has combined entertainment, education, inspiration, and you can add a couple of other Asians here that I can't think of right now. He is the ultimate filmmaker. He is the Leonardo da Vinci of Hollywood, the Michelangelo of Hollywood. And what really comes through in this autobiography is two things. Number one, he's a unique person. Unique people make unique things. Unique people create wealth. Unique people create interesting, unique things. You can't make something unique if you're not unique. You know, we often make that mistake. You go to the Rhode Island School of Design or to the film school XYZ, you are a cookie cutter person, and then you go and do art, and then you expect to not do cookie cutter art. It's not going to be like that. You are a cookie cutter person, you went to cookie cutter schools, cookie cutter here, cookie cutter there, and then you end up being funded by a VC in Silicon Valley, and then you're supposed to generate wealth. It doesn't work like that. In order to generate wealth, and this is 0 to 1, Peter Thiel, the book is about that, you have to be unique. You have to create your own monopoly. And you can only create a monopoly, a legal monopoly, of course, which is a business which is so unique and has the kind of leverage, operating leverage, intellectual leverage, following the power law of creativity, of knowledge, power law in the sense that you can create on top of a large business, you can, with creativity, increase your wealth at the same rate, and because your base now is higher, you create a lot more actual wealth in dollars. This is what we're applying right now as a thesis for Tesla. Even though it's very big, it can still be much, much bigger because the power law is working there because of the uniqueness of the business. So what Oliver Stone's autobiography teaches me personally is that you have to stick to your own guns. These are all things that maybe sound obvious, maybe they sound easy, yeah, of course, but most people are not living like that. Most people are exactly doing the opposite. They're trying to be pushed into a cookie cutter lifestyle, a cookie cutter way of being educated, a cookie cutter way of executing what you know, all these things. Creativity is being stifled in almost everywhere. And Stone is a perfect example of, if you stick to your guns, if you don't give up, you have the chance to actually create something amazing. So that's why this book to me has been very influential. The last one, No Rules Rules, Reed Hastings. I think almost by default, somebody like Reed Hastings has to be on this list. He's one of the most creative, interesting wealth generators of our time. Netflix, he's the co-founder and, the founder and CEO of Netflix. I think I don't need words and introduction here in terms of what he's achieved with Netflix. It speaks for itself. So let's just go right into the book. By the way, I haven't even finished the book. I just read maybe 30% of the book. But here's the key that I've taken away from the first 30%. Okay, it's about constant feedback, candor. So what Hastings has built within Netflix is sort of a Popperian epistemology of continuously challenging ideas and replacing bad ideas with good ideas. He has created a meme which is a way to behave that influences other people's behavior and your own behavior. So a meme that is gearing towards getting better and better and better. Or in other words, he has created a constant liquid market of ideas within his company. He calls that feedback, candor, and there's a lot of problems with that, a lot of design issues, because we humans, we come with lots of design flaws when it comes to Popperian epistemology. We are not evolved to be like that. It's actually a wonder that we are where we are. This is a little digression. I think it's the question is not why is the West, why did the Enlightenment happen in Europe and the US and Australia and Canada and all these places? Why are they so successful? The question is, why did they even happen? Why is not everything like the way it used to be, which is the strong eat the weak, and and there's always a 1% of haciendas which owns everything and everybody else is poor, and there's no change, and the society is static, and all the means of the society are there to preserve the status quo. It's the exact opposite. Why did the Enlightenment happen? This was a digression. I'm just saying the shock, the surprise, the beauty of life is that we have this opportunity to live in this 250, 300 years of a time frame, and hopefully it will continue, that is so beautiful in terms of progress and wealth creation, because we have this Popperian challenge of ideas, replacing bad ideas with better ideas. And this is what Hastings has designed within his own company. So Netflix is designed to continuously challenge people's ideas. Now, the problem when I say there's a design flaw with humans is, of course, on the first side, when you hear that, you're like, oh my gosh, this cannot work. How can this work? People use feedback, for example, to impose themselves, to make other people feel bad, to also put their own status ahead of others, etc. So how do you make sure it's the kind of feedback or the kind of competition of ideas which is actually ending up having a larger sum of the parts, which is working like Popper says it should be working, which is replace bad ideas with better ideas. Because you could have also a meme which is disguised as some sort of progress meme, and the meme could actually have the opposite result, which is it could reinforce the status quo. So if I am, let's say, just say I'm your boss, and you give me feedback, I put you down with other feedback, and then you are scared of giving me more feedback, and that's the status quo. So anyway, what I'm saying is, this book is very eye-opening to me, that this whole idea of markets of ideas, of developing better ideas, replacing bad ideas with better ideas, it works at large scale in democracies and free markets. This is what they are. Replace bad ideas with better ideas, replace bad leaders with better leaders, replace bad truth with better truth. It also has to be done within companies if you really want to create value. And this is exactly what Netflix is doing. And I think this is another small digression, that this is one of the biggest challenges of Tesla. How can Tesla maintain a culture of building an innovation stack based on the competition of ideas, of the competition of, or the Popperian process of replacing bad ideas with better ideas? How can they do that at scale and use the power law that I think they have in terms of building new technologies and building wealth? How can they, within that context, continue to foster that kind of culture? Can it just be one man, Elon Musk, propelling that kind of culture throughout the organization? Are there memes within the organization that help reinforce that? Those are questions I would love to ask Tesla, and I think this book, No Rules Rules, is a very inspiring book from that perspective. So to summarize, the 5 books that influenced me most this year that I just discussed now: number 1, The Innovation Stack by Jim McKelvey; number 2, The Beginning of Infinity by David Deutsch; number 3, The Breakthrough by Charles Graeber; number 4, Chasing the Light by Oliver Stone; and number 5, No Rules Rules by Reed Hastings. All these books have in common one thing: progress is based on your unique choice to do your unique thing to make that progress happen. Thank you.